Hello guys, welcome back to Basketball Fan. Today I want to dive into something that I briefly touched on in my reaction after Team USA's win last night. On the surface, when you look at the scoreboard, it was a victory. The United States got the result they wanted, the team walked away with a win, and in the record books it will simply show another successful outing. But if you were actually watching the game with a different expectation, if you tuned in hoping to see Caitlin Clark return to international basketball and showcase the style of play that made her one of the most exciting stars in the sport, then the experience felt very different. In fact, for a lot of fans, it felt messy, confusing, and at times even frustrating. This was supposed to be a big moment. Clark hadn't played international basketball for 239 days. That's a long time away from the international stage, and naturally there was a lot of anticipation. Fans were excited to see what she would look like back in a USA uniform. Would she immediately bring that same dynamic energy? Would she control the pace of the game the way she does at the professional level? Would she start creating the kinds of highlight moments that have made millions of people fall in love with women's basketball over the past couple of years? And right away, Clark reminded everyone why she commands so much attention. In her first game back, she put together a performance that included 17 points and 2 assists. That stat line alone isn't what defines her impact, though. Anyone who actually watches her play understands that her influence goes far beyond the numbers. The way she pushes the tempo, the way she stretches defenses with deep shooting range, the way she reads passing lanes and anticipates plays, those things fundamentally change how a game feels when she's on the floor. That's exactly what people came to watch. The rise in popularity of women's basketball over the past couple of seasons didn't happen by accident. A huge part of that momentum is tied directly to Clark's style of play. Her deep three-pointers from the logo, her aggressive push in transition, and her creative passing have created a kind of excitement that feels different from what many casual viewers were used to seeing before. It's fast, it's unpredictable, and it produces highlight moments that spread across social media within minutes. So when fans tuned into this Team USA game, they weren't just hoping for a win. They wanted to see that energy unleashed on the international stage again. But for long stretches of the game, it didn't feel like the offense was built around that idea at all. Instead of the fast-paced, flowing attack that people associate with Clark, there were several stretches where the offense looked slow and stagnant. Possessions took longer to develop. The ball didn't always move quickly. And perhaps most importantly, there were moments where Clark seemed strangely uninvolved in the action, almost as if the offense was running independently of one of the most creative playmakers on the floor. That's where the frustration really started to build among fans. When a player with Clark's vision and playmaking ability is standing on the floor, people naturally expect the ball to run through her hands more often. Not because she needs to dominate every possession, but because she has the unique ability to elevate the entire offense. She creates opportunities for teammates. She forces defenses to stretch farther out than they normally would. And when the pace increases, everything opens up. But last night, there were stretches where that simply didn't happen. Instead, the offense slowed down. The ball sometimes stayed on one side of the floor. And in certain moments that quickly went viral online, Clark appeared wide open while the play developed somewhere else entirely. That's when fans began pointing out specific sequences involving Angel Reese. Several clips circulating on social media showed moments where Clark was available to receive the ball but never got it. Those clips quickly sparked debate among viewers who were already watching closely for signs of chemistry or tension between players. Now to be clear, basketball games are chaotic. Not every missed pass or decision means something deeper is happening. Players make quick choices under pressure, and sometimes they simply read the play differently than the fans watching at home. However, when multiple clips start circulating showing similar situations, people inevitably start asking questions. And that's exactly what happened here. Fans began analyzing individual possessions frame by frame. They pointed to moments where Reese pushed the ball up the court herself instead of passing to Clark. They pointed to sequences where Clark appeared ready to initiate the offense, but the ball never reached her. And before long, those clips had spread far beyond the original broadcast. Once social media conversations start building like that, the next step is almost inevitable. The media begins to pick up the story. Articles began appearing discussing the fan reaction and highlighting the viral clips that people were sharing. Writers started asking whether there might be tension between the two players or whether the offense simply wasn't structured in a way that maximized Clark's strengths. And when media outlets begin writing about something that originally started as fan chatter online, the conversation suddenly becomes much bigger. For example, coverage from sports commentators discussed the idea that Clark may have been frozen out of certain possessions. Other analysts pushed back on that narrative, suggesting that the team was still working out chemistry and that it's too early to jump to conclusions. But regardless of which side of the argument someone falls on, the fact that the conversation exists at all shows just how closely people are watching this team. That level of scrutiny is something that comes with Clark's popularity. Ever since her rise in college basketball and her transition into the professional game, she has been one of the most discussed athletes in the sport. Every performance, every highlight, and every interaction gets analyzed in real time. And when you combine that spotlight with a personality like Reese, who has also been one of the most talked about players in women's basketball, the dynamic becomes even more fascinating. The history between Clark and Reese is well known among fans. Their rivalry dates back to their college careers, where their matchups generated massive ratings and endless debate among basketball followers. Their contrasting styles and personalities helped create one of the most compelling storylines the sport has seen in years. So when they appear on the same team wearing the same uniform, people naturally watch every interaction closely. That doesn't necessarily mean there is actual conflict happening. Rivalries often fade when players become teammates, especially in professional or national team environments where the shared goal is winning. But the perception of tension can still exist, especially when certain moments from games seem to reinforce the narrative. And that's what happened during this particular matchup. One clip that fans kept replaying showed Reese bringing the ball up the court herself while Clark was nearby. In isolation, it's just a single possession, something that happens all the time in basketball when players grab a rebound and push the ball forward. But because Clark is widely considered one of the best point guards in the game, fans immediately questioned why the ball wasn't handed off to her sooner. Another clip showed a pass that resulted in a turnover, which again led people to ask whether the offense would have been better organized if Clark had been the one initiating the play. These are the kinds of moments that fuel debate. Fans pause the video, circle players on the screen, and ask whether a different decision might have led to a better outcome. Of course, coaches see the game differently than fans watching highlights online. For them, the bigger picture involves systems, rotations, and player development. Team USA head coach Kara Lawson has the responsibility of building a roster that can function as a cohesive unit. That means giving different players opportunities to handle the ball, experiment with roles, and develop chemistry before facing stronger international competition. From that perspective, some of the decisions that look confusing in isolated clips may actually be part of a broader strategy. Still, perception matters. When fans feel like the most electrifying player on the court isn't being fully utilized, frustration naturally grows. The new wave of viewers that women's basketball has attracted over the past few years came for a certain style of play. They came for the long-range shooting, the quick transitions, and the creative passes that turn ordinary possessions into viral highlights. When those elements disappear for long stretches, the game can start to feel slower than people expected. That's not necessarily anyone's fault. Different teams play at different paces, and international basketball often emphasizes structure and defense more heavily than the wide-open style that fans sometimes see in professional leagues. But expectations are powerful. Clark's presence raises those expectations dramatically. People don't just want to see her on the floor, they want to see her controlling the game, launching deep shots, and orchestrating plays that leave defenders scrambling. When that doesn't happen consistently, the conversation quickly turns toward why. Was it the game plan? Was it the chemistry between players? Was it simply an off night in terms of rhythm? Those are the questions fans are debating right now. And to be fair, it's still incredibly early for this group. National teams often have limited practice time together compared to professional clubs. Players arrive from different systems, different leagues, and different coaching philosophies. It can take several games before everyone finds their rhythm within the same structure. So while the clips circulating online might look dramatic, they don't necessarily tell the entire story of what's happening on the court. What they do show, though, is how much attention this team is receiving. Every pass, every possession, and every interaction between Clark and Reese is being watched, analyzed, and discussed across social media and sports media platforms. That level of interest is both a blessing and a challenge for the team. On one hand, it proves that women's basketball is capturing more attention than ever before. On the other hand, it means even minor moments can explode into major storylines overnight. For Team USA moving forward, the key will be finding a balance that maximizes the strengths of all their players. Clark's playmaking ability is a major weapon. Reese's rebounding and interior presence are also extremely valuable. When both players are operating within a system that highlights what they do best, the team becomes incredibly difficult to stop. The potential is clearly there. If the offense starts flowing more naturally and the chemistry between players continues to develop, this could become one of the most exciting teams to watch in international competition. The combination of speed, shooting, and athleticism gives them the tools to dominate when everything clicks. But for now, the conversation surrounding last night's game is less about the final score and more about how the game looked while it was unfolding. Fans expected fireworks. Instead, they saw flashes of brilliance mixed with stretches of confusion. And whenever expectations collide with reality like that, debates are inevitable. The good news for Team USA is that these discussions usually fade quickly once the team starts performing at a high level consistently. Winning solves a lot of problems in sports. If the offense becomes more fluid and Clark's playmaking starts generating the kinds of highlights people expect, the narrative will shift almost immediately. Until then, though, every game will continue to be watched under a microscope. Because when a player as electrifying as Caitlin Clark is on the court, fans don't just want to see a win. They want to see the show. And that's something we'll definitely keep watching here on Basketball Fan. Welcome back to Basketball Fan, everyone. As we continue breaking down everything that happened in that Team USA game, there's another layer to the story that's been exploding across social media and sports media since the final buzzer. Earlier, I talked about how the game itself felt strange for many viewers who tuned in expecting to see a fast-paced, Caitlin Clark-led offense. But now we need to talk about the reactions that came afterward, because those reactions are quickly becoming just as big of a storyline as the game itself. For months leading up to this moment, there were people saying that when these players finally ended up on the same court in the same uniform, there might be tension. Some fans dismissed that idea completely, saying that once everyone was wearing the Team USA jersey, all the previous rivalries and storylines would disappear. Others weren't so sure. They said to wait and watch how things played out once the games actually started. Now that we've seen one of the first big games with this group, a lot of people online feel like their predictions are coming true. Social media has been filled with comments, reactions, slow-motion breakdowns of possessions, and endless debates about what fans believe they saw during certain moments of the game. And when you scroll through those reactions, the emotions are intense. Some fans are frustrated. Some are confused. Some are defending players who they believe are being unfairly criticized. Others are doubling down on the idea that there's something deeper going on with how the offense operated. The name that keeps appearing in those discussions alongside Caitlin Clark is Angel Reese. Now, before diving into the reactions, it's important to remember that online commentary doesn't always represent the full reality of what happens inside a team. Players make split-second decisions in games. Coaches run systems that might not be obvious to viewers. And sometimes clips circulating online only show a small piece of a larger possession. Still, the reactions themselves are worth discussing because they reveal how passionate the fan base has become. One of the most common sentiments floating around online is disbelief that Reese was bringing the ball up the court in certain possessions while Clark was nearby. Fans who are used to watching Clark run offenses at a high tempo immediately questioned why the ball wasn't being placed in the hands of the team's primary playmaker sooner. In the eyes of those viewers, the situation felt backwards. Many of them framed the argument in simple basketball logic. When you have one of the best point guards in the world on the floor, the natural instinct is to let that player control the tempo, initiate the offense, and make the first read. That doesn't mean other players can't handle the ball, but fans felt like the priority should have been clear. Some commenters took that idea even further, using comparisons from other eras of basketball. They pointed out how teams historically rely on their best playmakers to orchestrate the offense. One fan compared the situation to the idea of a role player trying to run point while a superstar floor general is standing nearby ready to receive the ball. The comparison was exaggerated for effect, of course, but it illustrates how strongly some viewers felt about the sequence they watched. Others focused less on the specific play and more on what they perceived as a larger pattern. According to those fans, the offense looked like it lacked clear structure at times, especially during possessions when the ball moved away from Clark early in the play. That perception led to another wave of criticism aimed not just at players, but at the coaching staff. Several reactions online argued that situations like this fall under the responsibility of the coaching staff to correct immediately. Fans began calling on head coach Kara Lawson to address the issue before it becomes a bigger problem later in the tournament. From the outside looking in, some viewers believe the solution is simple: define roles clearly and make sure everyone understands them. In that vision of the offense, Clark handles the majority of the playmaking duties. Other players focus on their strengths, whether that's rebounding, defense, cutting to the basket, or spacing the floor. But not everyone agrees with that interpretation. There are also fans pushing back strongly against the criticism aimed at Reese. Some people believe that the viral clips circulating online are misleading because they only show a portion of the possession. According to those viewers, there were moments where Reese did eventually pass the ball to Clark after initially handling it. Those fans argue that editing clips to highlight certain moments can create a narrative that doesn't fully represent what happened during the entire game. In other words, the debate has turned into a classic sports argument. One side believes the footage shows a clear issue, while the other side believes the footage has been taken out of context. And that's where things get really interesting. Because when debates like this start spreading online, they rarely stay limited to a small group of fans. They grow quickly. More people jump in with their opinions. Analysts begin discussing the situation on sports shows. Articles get written about the fan reactions themselves. What started as a few viral clips suddenly becomes a full-blown conversation about team chemistry. Some fans even frame the situation in terms of personal ambition within the team. According to that perspective, certain players might be trying to establish themselves as stars rather than focusing strictly on their roles within the lineup. Now again, that's speculation coming from fans, not confirmed information from inside the team. But it shows how quickly narratives can form when people analyze games through the lens of existing rivalries or storylines. And speaking of rivalries, it's impossible to discuss the reactions without acknowledging the history between Clark and Reese. Their matchups during their college careers generated massive attention and helped bring unprecedented viewership to women's basketball. Every game between their teams became an event. Their contrasting styles, personalities, and competitive fire created a storyline that fans followed closely. So when those two players now share the same roster on Team USA, every interaction between them is automatically placed under a microscope. That doesn't necessarily mean there is tension between them as teammates. Rivalries often cool down when players join the same side. But the memory of those battles still shapes how fans interpret what they see. If Reese handles the ball for a few seconds longer than expected, some viewers immediately wonder whether there's a deeper meaning behind it. If Clark doesn't receive a pass in a certain moment, the clip gets replayed and analyzed repeatedly. This kind of scrutiny is the price of popularity. Clark's rise to superstardom brought millions of new viewers into women's basketball. With that growth comes a level of attention that the sport has rarely experienced before. Every possession gets examined in real time across social media platforms. And Reese, being one of the most recognizable personalities in the game herself, is naturally pulled into that spotlight as well. One interesting theme that kept appearing in fan reactions was the idea of role acceptance. Some commenters suggested that Reese could thrive if she focused primarily on rebounding, defense, and energy plays. They pointed to legendary players from past eras who built their careers around dominating those aspects of the game. Those fans argued that if Reese leaned fully into that role, she could become one of the most valuable pieces on the roster. But again, that perspective isn't universal. Other fans believe Reese has every right to expand her game and develop additional skills, including handling the ball and initiating plays when the situation calls for it. From that viewpoint, limiting players to narrow roles might actually reduce the team's versatility. This debate about roles versus versatility has existed in basketball for decades. Some coaches prefer clearly defined responsibilities for each player. Others encourage everyone on the court to develop multiple skills so the offense can flow more freely. Where Team USA ultimately lands on that spectrum will likely become clearer as the tournament continues. Another element that fans keep bringing up is accountability from the coaching staff. Many reactions suggest that if certain plays truly go against the intended system, the coaching staff will address it quickly. Coaches at this level are known for demanding discipline and teamwork, especially in international competitions where mistakes can be costly against elite opponents. That's why some viewers are confident that if anything in the game truly concerned the staff, it will be corrected before the next matchup. Lawson has built a reputation for emphasizing team play and player development. Her approach often focuses on creating an environment where players understand their roles, but also continue improving their overall skill sets. Because of that reputation, some fans believe the coaching staff is already aware of the issues being discussed online and is likely addressing them internally. At the same time, other fans feel like the optics of the situation matter just as much as the reality. When viewers see the team's most electrifying playmaker standing ready to receive the ball while the offense develops elsewhere, it creates a moment that people remember. Even if the play eventually works out, that initial hesitation can become the clip that spreads across the internet. And once a clip goes viral, it's nearly impossible to control how people interpret it. That's the world modern athletes compete in. Every game now exists not only on the court, but also across countless digital platforms where fans analyze, debate, and sometimes exaggerate what they believe they saw. For Team USA, the challenge moving forward will be finding a rhythm that quiets the noise. If the offense begins flowing through Clark more consistently and produces the high-tempo style fans expect, many of these debates will likely fade. Winning games while playing an exciting brand of basketball tends to settle most arguments quickly. At the same time, Reese's strengths, rebounding, physical presence, and relentless energy are valuable assets that could become even more important against tougher international opponents. In an ideal scenario, those strengths complement Clark's playmaking rather than competing with it. Clark pushes the pace, stretches defenses with deep shooting, and creates opportunities for teammates. Reese dominates the glass, controls the paint, and provides defensive intensity. When those pieces work together, the team becomes far more dangerous. That's the version of Team USA that fans are hoping to see develop as the tournament continues. Right now, though, the conversation is still dominated by reactions to those few possessions that sparked controversy online. Some fans believe they reveal a deeper issue. Others believe they're simply being blown out of proportion. The truth probably lies somewhere in between. Basketball is a complex game played at incredible speed. What looks like a simple decision from the couch might involve multiple reads happening in a fraction of a second on the court. But one thing is certain: people are paying attention. The fact that these moments are generating such intense discussion shows just how much interest there is in this team and in women's basketball as a whole. A few years ago, a possession from a Team USA exhibition game might have come and gone without much debate. Now, every frame gets analyzed. And as long as Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese share the floor in the same jersey, that level of attention is likely to continue. For fans, the hope is that the next game brings more clarity, more chemistry, and the kind of explosive offense that made so many people excited to watch this team in the first place. Because when everything clicks, when Clark is orchestrating the offense, when Reese is controlling the boards, and when the entire roster is moving with purpose, the potential for this team is enormous. We'll keep watching closely and breaking it all down right here on Basketball Fan. Welcome back to Basketball Fan. Let's continue unpacking everything that fans have been talking about after that Team USA game, because the reactions online have been absolutely relentless. If you've spent even a few minutes scrolling through social media since the game ended, you've probably already seen just how heated the discussion has become. A lot of viewers who watched the game live walked away feeling confused about several possessions that unfolded on the court. Some of those moments were replayed over and over again online, and every time they were shown, fans had the same reaction: disbelief. The main reason people keep bringing those moments up is because they felt like the solution on those plays was obvious. When you see Caitlin Clark standing nearby ready to run the offense, many viewers believe the ball should naturally move into her hands so she can set up the next action. Instead, there were several possessions that appeared to go in a completely different direction. Fans watching from home described the feeling as frustrating because, from their perspective, the offense seemed to stall during those moments. Some even said that watching those possessions unfold actually hurt their eyes because it felt like the simplest option on the floor was being ignored. The reaction section across sports platforms quickly filled with strong opinions. Some fans said they expected the coaching staff to immediately address the situation. In their view, moments like that should be corrected quickly because they believe a national team has to operate with clear structure and discipline. Those fans argued that when a player known for elite playmaking is on the court, the offense should naturally flow through that player more often. In their eyes, that's just basic basketball strategy. But the discussion didn't stop there. As more people watched the clips, the reactions became more emotional, and the language used by some commenters became harsher. Some viewers began accusing Angel Reese of trying to do too much on the court. According to those critics, the possessions where Reese pushed the ball forward herself instead of immediately handing it off to Clark made it look like she was trying to control the offense. For fans who see Clark as the primary floor general, that decision didn't make sense. A few commenters even went as far as suggesting that Reese believes she's bigger than the program itself. That kind of statement obviously sparked even more debate because it touches on deeper questions about ego, roles, and team dynamics. When fans start questioning whether a player's mindset aligns with the team's goals, the conversation quickly becomes more intense. Other reactions focused on skill sets and basketball IQ. Critics claimed that Reese should focus on the areas where she has historically been most effective: rebounding, defense, and energy plays around the basket. From their perspective, trying to initiate offense from the perimeter wasn't playing to her strengths. But at the same time, there were also fans pushing back against that criticism. Those viewers argued that basketball today is more positionless than ever before. In modern systems, forwards often handle the ball and initiate offense. So to them, Reese pushing the ball up the court wasn't necessarily wrong, it was simply part of a more flexible style of play. Still, the clips that spread across the internet kept bringing the conversation back to the same point. In several of those moments, Clark appeared open and ready to receive the ball. When the pass didn't come, viewers interpreted it as either a missed read or a deliberate decision. Once that narrative started spreading, it became the centerpiece of many fan discussions. Some commenters even started assigning nicknames and labels during the debate, which is something that often happens when sports conversations become emotional online. Others mocked the idea that Reese could run the offense when Clark was standing nearby. The tone of those comments reflected just how passionate and sometimes volatile sports fandom can be. Another theme that kept appearing in reactions was the comparison between how different players approach the game. Fans pointed out that Clark is known for constantly moving the ball and creating opportunities for teammates. They highlighted plays where she made quick passes, found open shooters, or created scoring chances with her vision. When viewers compared those moments with possessions where the ball seemed to stop moving, it reinforced their frustration. They felt like the offense lost momentum whenever the pace slowed down or the ball didn't move through the playmaker they expected. But not everyone agreed with that interpretation. Some people argued that fans were overanalyzing a few isolated possessions in a single game. Basketball is fluid, and every player has moments where they make decisions that could have gone differently. According to those viewers, focusing too heavily on a handful of clips creates a narrative that might not reflect the full picture of the game. They also pointed out that Team USA rosters often include multiple players capable of handling the ball. The coaching staff sometimes encourages different players to bring the ball up the court in order to keep the offense unpredictable. That's where the role of head coach Kara Lawson comes into the conversation. Many fans believe Lawson will ultimately decide how the team's offense should function moving forward. If she believes the offense works best with Clark initiating most possessions, she can easily adjust the system. Others believe Lawson is intentionally experimenting with different lineups and responsibilities while the team prepares for tougher international competition. National teams often have limited time together compared to professional squads, so early games sometimes serve as testing grounds for different strategies. Still, the fan reactions didn't stop with Reese. Several viewers also brought up Kalia Copper, saying they felt she wasn't looking to pass often enough during certain possessions. In those clips, fans claimed Clark appeared open but didn't receive the ball. That observation added another layer to the conversation. Instead of focusing only on Reese, the debate expanded to include whether multiple players were missing opportunities to involve Clark more consistently in the offense. Another point that kept coming up was playing time. Some viewers noticed that Clark entered the game during shorter stretches and wondered how she could establish rhythm with limited minutes. Basketball players often rely on consistent playing time to find their timing and flow within the offense. When minutes come in short bursts, it can be difficult to build momentum. Fans argued that if Clark is expected to lead the offense, she needs enough time on the court to actually control the pace of the game. Without that continuity, they believe it becomes harder for her to create the kinds of sequences people are used to seeing. One of the more dramatic moments that fans highlighted involved Clark taking contact during a three-point attempt. Some viewers expressed frustration that she seems to take physical hits frequently without always getting the calls they expect. They pointed out that she's been knocked down or hit on jump shots in multiple games. That observation quickly turned into another debate about officiating and physical play in women's basketball. Some fans believe defenders are allowed to be overly aggressive with Clark because of how dangerous she is as a shooter. Others argue that physical defense is simply part of the game and that every star player experiences similar treatment. But beyond the debates about officiating, many fans also wanted to highlight Clark's defensive effort during the game. Critics sometimes claim that she focuses mainly on offense, but viewers pointed out moments where she recorded steals, blocks, and strong defensive plays. Those clips were shared widely as fans tried to show that Clark contributes on both ends of the floor. And that brings us back to the central theme of the conversation: expectations. Clark's arrival on the international stage has brought enormous attention to the sport. The way she plays fast, creative, fearless has drawn millions of new viewers into women's basketball. Because of that influence, many fans believe the offense should be built around her unique skill set. They want to see the deep threes, the lightning-quick passes, and the fast-break plays that make the game feel electric. When those elements are missing or appear limited, viewers start asking questions. Why isn't she touching the ball more? Why does the pace feel slower? Why does it seem like the offense isn't flowing through the player who thrives in open, fast situations? Those questions are driving the conversation right now. At the same time, it's important to remember that building chemistry within a national team takes time. Players come from different professional systems and different coaching philosophies. It often takes several games before everyone fully understands how to complement each other's strengths. In the ideal scenario, the team will find a balance that allows every player to contribute effectively. Clark's playmaking can ignite the offense and create opportunities for shooters and cutters. Reese's rebounding and physical presence can dominate the interior and provide second-chance points. Players like Copper bring scoring ability and athleticism that can stretch defenses. When those pieces work together, the team becomes extremely dangerous. But when the rhythm isn't quite there yet, even small moments can become major talking points. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. Fans are analyzing every possession, replaying every clip, and debating every decision. Some believe the issues are obvious and need to be fixed immediately. Others believe the criticism is overblown and that the team simply needs more time to develop chemistry. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Basketball is a complex game played at incredible speed. Decisions that look simple from the outside can involve multiple reads and defensive adjustments that viewers might not notice in real time. But one thing is clear, people care deeply about how this team performs. The attention surrounding Clark and her teammates has elevated the visibility of women's basketball to levels that the sport hasn't experienced before. Every game is now part of a larger conversation about the future of the league, player roles, and the continued growth of the sport. Fans want to see great basketball. They want to see players working together, building chemistry, and producing the kind of exciting moments that bring new audiences into the game. As the next matchup approaches, many viewers are hoping the team finds a smoother rhythm. They want to see the offense move faster, the ball move more freely, and the players fully embrace the strengths each teammate brings to the court. If that happens, many of the debates happening right now will likely fade. But until then, the conversation continues. And here on Basketball Fan, we'll keep following every development, breaking down the games, and discussing what it all means for Team USA and the future of women's basketball.